Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Revan Gaming and welcome back for our final video in Ascension Park. This is a build for the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the star animal of the park. So I wanted it to have something a bit special, but which would separate it from any of the other dinosaurs or mammals in the park. So to give it something that a little bit special, I decided on building a moat for our Tyrannosaurus. This paddock will contain two, which you'll be seeing later. Initially forgot to do the random scale on the walls for the rocks, but as you can see, we soon rectified that. Just building walls, keeping them not at this point it's nice and basic, but as you can see now, adding some extra rocks in to break that pattern up, keep it a bit more randomized, make it look a bit more real. Because obviously, as you can see along the edge of the dip into this trench, there is a bit of torn textures. I then had the idea of using some substrate to put some foliage and that in front of that second fence line, before settling on the square ones. Wouldn't work too great. Then moved on to the circular ones to try it again, and like a muppet, I forgot that you could actually scale for like 5 seconds. Decided they wouldn't work either, so ended up settling on placing more rock again to hide that torn terrain texture. Placing, so as I say, just place some more in it, place them in, keep it all, you know, basic as it stands before throwing again a few more rocks in, break that pattern up, keep it looking a bit varied and less obviously fake. And then take the easy option, copy and paste that over to the other side of the trench. Could have probably scaled it a bit to make it a bit more varied, but it works. And then the hardest bit of the trench for me is capping them off, and just had the idea of, well, just use the same texture, build it up a bit higher, and then you've got a wall. It's that simple. I'm not sure why I thought it was as hard as what it was to cap a trench off, but hey, you give it you try, and eventually you'll find a way of how to do it, and yeah, that's try, and at the end of the day, it will pay off for you. So just getting those ends capped off before placing in the bottom of the trench, just keep it more cohesive, scale that up, random rotation, and again, a few more random rocks in just to pick up the texture, make it look like it's not the same rock placed over and over again. Put some concrete barriers in either side of that, just to, you know, cap the ends off and everything, keep the Tyrannosaurus Rexes from escaping, because let's face it, we don't want a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World incident in Ascension Park. Had a little bit of a conundrum on what skin I would go for with the Tyrannosaurus, but we soon settled on that. And you can see we're building those barriers in, measuring it out before we move on to building the barn for them. Now, the barns in Ascension Park, as you probably saw in the tour previously, are fairly function over form. They are very bare bones, but at the end of the day, this is what they would be. Eventually settling on the palette of the rustic theme, which since it's been added, I think has got to be one of probably the best theme in the park for in the game for actually building. It just fills so many gaps, and yes, I know it's meant to maybe be for probably the Ice Age stuff, probably more than dinosaurs, but I feel it works really well regardless, because it's such a good theme. Just making that and looking more cohesive with the rest of the base in the park, putting the flooring, before realising I'd not selected flattened terrain, and soon realising that where the edge of the terrain, the barrier, it was not flattening the terrain, and just got to delete the barriers. Realised that was not going to be the case, being flat, and just decided in my head to just move on with it and carry on with it being the way that it is. Getting a roof on here. Normally I would put skylights in on my barn. It just, I don't know, just makes them look a bit nicer. On this one, due to the depth of the barn, that didn't really happen, but I'm still pleased with how this barn turned out. Obviously the Tyrannosaurus Rex, I mean, well, I say obviously, the Tyrannosaurus Rex is probably my favourite dinosaur, even if it is a really, like, you know, it's like 5-year-old basic, oh, I like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, but I just find them cool. Getting the last of those perimeter walls in before unpausing the game to let our Tyrannosaurs roam around their new paddock before moving on to the terrain painting. The food down in front of it so the guests can see the meeting before placing the sand and everything in, because as far as my understanding is, grass hadn't evolved by the time the Tyrannosaurus Rex was walking the planet, so there's no grass in any of our dinosaur habitats in Ascension Park. Do some terrain painting, get the foliage in, keep it nice and wooded, moving some away from the entrance to the barn because they wouldn't be any that close in real life, I don't think. Bit more terrain paint going down before we are going to click on one of our Tyrannosaurs just to see how the habitat fits for them, which is not the best. Soon we get the forest all laid out, and then it's just tackling water need, to which I came up with the idea of putting it at the bottom of the trench, filling the rest of the trench in, and then we just need a small pond in the actual paddock to keep our Tyrannosaurs happy. So just moving some of those bits of foliage around, just make space for that small pond just there, which just move it out, keeps it nice and level, and then we've got our water requirement filled. See just one of our Tyrannosaurs there with a tree going straight up through him, before putting in some of our bedding in before realising that they were floating. Soon rectified, and now we can move on to placing the education boards, because obviously we want our guests to have plenty of education and keeping them interested. Placing down the dung beetle nest now, because keep habitat clean, before having the idea of adjusting the habitat walls, because we wanted a viewing deck, because all the other 5-star animals in this park do have a viewing deck, a gift shop and a little restaurant beside them. The gift shop would be selling things such as t-shirts with slogans like "I saw the Tyrannosaurus Rex at Ascension Park and survived," stuff like that. Obviously big name animal for the park, you're going to market it. That's basic business. Now making the viewing gallery for that before setting on a design which I'm really quite pleased with. Look fairly modern but also quite secure for our guests. Just deleting the bits before putting in the 4-meter sloped roof bit, before putting the concrete roof in to cover that up, which is honestly the first time I've ever used a concrete roof in this game. Placing more roof down before putting the fence in and stuff like that, obviously because we don't want our guests falling into our Tyrannosaur habitat. Just getting them lined up, choosing it if that's really the best fence to go for, which we did. Put a rail in, and then some beams to shore up that overhang, keep it nice and secure, because obviously we don't want any collapses, because at the slope of that angle you're ending up in a Tyrannosaurus habitat, and that's not going to be a good day for you. A little bit of a glitch with the advanced move, but we soon rectify that with some more placement. We just tidying up the rest of that before adding a bit more space for guests to move around on that viewing platform before we move on to the actual building of the main building for the guests' facilities. I had a bit of a conundrum as to how we would design that. Initially went with go with some arches, but wasn't really keen on how that looked. So in the end, we just settled with it nice and open. As you can see here, obviously there is a lip between the platform and the interior. That is rectified later in the video. Just getting everything lined up with how I want it to be, just settling on a theme, and again going with that trusty, looking at that trusty rustic theme before settling on the wood panels, the modern wood panels, just moving some of the glass so it's not poking through out of the building, before putting some more flooring down, getting the gift shop items in, because as I say, we want to market the living daylights out of our Tyrannosaurs. I'm denied about putting the shop in before setting on actually putting the staircase up. I would normally have put in a elevator, a lift, whatever you'd like to call it, but I will admit I forgot to do that this time round. And so just getting them all that lined up, happy, keeping it nice and open, just healing that up, keeping our just getting the actual shape of the building settled before deciding, yeah, we'll put some toilets in, because obviously we're going to have a restaurant here. You need to have some toilets if you're going to be selling food and drink, because let's face it, there is inevitability of what will happen of selling food and drink, and well, you're going to need toilets for that. Getting a bit more windows in to allow some more light into our upper deck, upper floor, whatever you'd like to call it. Getting the more and more of that building settled in before deciding on quite a unique shape for the roof, which I'm really quite happy with how that turned out. Just lining it all up, covering all the holes, and placing in food stalls and neatening them up and just taking it around that corner to keep things interesting. Obviously get our entranceway in and moving away from that concrete floor because it's just a bit naff. Wanted something a bit nicer before settling on the I believe it's the raw plank. I'm denied about putting a statue in somewhere, decided against doing that, and just filling in the rest of the walls and getting it looking all neat and tidy, slapping some tables in because obviously it's a restaurant, we're going to want some tables in here. Just capping it all off now, just with that, with the builds, putting some bins in because obviously we don't want our guests littering in the building. I mean, about if there's anywhere else I could put some more bins, which I put an education screen in. Soon decided no, I'm a fan of having it there. Before we then move on to putting our guest binoculars in, lining them up quite nice and happily, and then this is where after a bit of more moving, the roof dropped down a little bit, which made it flush with the floor of the interior, which I was really quite happy with. Putting the education boards in because obviously you would have some education up here, and then just getting that lined up so it's all level and turning them on. Food placement just so it encourages the dinosaurs to come over there, so I guess get a good view. Tidying up the floor so you don't have floor poking out from the rest of the build, and then finishing up the walls before putting a ceiling in, putting some lights because there's not going to be much natural light coming in here because of the position of where the this building is and the fact there's going to be foliage all around it. So getting some lights in before moving on to the upper deck again, ceiling in there, and the rest of the roof stuff, which like a fool, I decided putting the roof on first before trying to put the ceiling in, but quite a unique roof shape for this build, which I really, as I say, really quite happy with because, as I say, it's just a bit unique, but something a bit different. So yeah, we've got that all done, putting in the trims, stuff like that. Making it all look all neat and tidy. I'm denied about putting the eaves in on the concrete bit there, but decided against it. Place a path in so our guests can actually get to the guest facility build. Fencing it off because it's just to keep it cohesive again with the rest of the park. I'm really liking the word cohesive. I'll try to stop using it and just tidying up. And this is where I decided to put the ceiling in the upper floor of our guest building, and was really struggling with that. So tried to move the roof one time and then moved it again, which allowed me better access and allowed me to get that ceiling in before putting the roof back. And that is it really. Just turning the rest of the education signs on, getting the rest of the binoculars in, and just getting that guest viewing in. Get the encouraging our guests to actually have a look in, and just placing that foliage down to bring the building into line with the rest of the park. Nice and tidy, nice thick foliage, hides the edges of the parks and of the park even, and any outside world, before realising I hadn't put a path in for our keepers to get to our Tyrannosaurs before running that down to our path, and again placing more fences just to keep it in line with the rest of the park before placing the rest of our foliage in, and just getting that all settled neat and tidy before putting the exterior perimeter wall of the park in and filling in the rest of the gaps. And that basically concludes the concludes the rest of the park. Realised I hadn't put flooring in, which meant we had trees coming up through the floor of our guest building, which, as you can see, we're sorting out now, and then stops the trees from growing up the inside of the building. But and that was it. That is the build. I got some screenshots here of the finished build. As I say, really pleased with how this habitat turned out. I'm really pleased with how this park turned out. It's still really strange having a finished zoo, but this is going to be it for Ascension Park. There is another park in the works. This one based in the Highlands up in Scotland, which will mainly be for our Ice Age mammals and things like that. But that is a video for another time. I'll leave you with the rest of these screenshots and the soundtrack from Planet Zoo, which incredible, not Planet Zoo, sorry, Prehistoric Kingdom. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching.